Welcome back, beautiful creative soul, to another episode of Chakra-Care for the creative soul. I'm so happy you're here today with myself and a very special guest today, talking about how your relationship to time creates a sustainable business. Yes, the special guest today in the room is Olga. She is an advocate for midlife thriving, guiding high achievers to reconnect with purpose, balance, and fulfillment. After 15 years in high stakes pharmaceutical finance, she shifted to a life of conscious living and meditation and global travel. And these experiences now shape her work with her clients, where she provides practical tools and self awareness practices to help them reclaim agency over their lives. Olga believes true fulfillment comes from balancing all aspects of life with happiness as a natural byproduct of living in alignment. And I love that, Olga. That is so juicy good.
Yes, yes.
Well, and it was interesting. Just before we started this, we were chatting, and I just want to share how I met Olga. The universe divinely orchestrates so many things. And through a good friend of mine that I was involved with a book project on, it was a passion project called We Are the Sacred Feminine Rising. I met another author in this multi author book, Tanyette Cologne. And this was a passion project where women shared their stories of transformation, and 100% of the proceeds still go in perpetuity to the Native Women's Association of Canada. That was our pooled effort, our give back to truth and reconciliation. And through Tanyette, who is a visionary herself, all about humanizing technology and business and the way we relate in this new digital world so that we stay connected to the truth of who we really are and elevate business to a whole new level through conscious practices, through conscious awareness. That's how I had the honor and blessing of meeting Olga Kolb. And oh my goodness, Olga, thank you for being with us. You're in Poland right now.
Correct, correct. That's how the world became small, right?
Exactly. And I loved how we were talking about that before the show, because our very first call, and I'm not even sure if I told you this, when we did our first What's Up call, I was in Cozumel, Mexico, and I was on the beach.
I love that. Amazing. Yes.
And it was a bit of a mind shift for me, because I felt like this is some of the beauty of technology, that I could be meeting you for the first time and we could be having this call. And I was in my happy spot, my recharging dock on Mother Earth, where I feel so connected to spirit of place. And I didn't have to be sitting in an office.
Yeah.
I could be honoring my need to have sunshine and be in nature. And at the same time, we had such a soulful conversation and really connected so beautifully. The whole conversation just flowed. And what overflowed is you being here now. And we've never actually even met in person. And yet both of us have taken leaps of faith. And we're part of a beautiful new passion project called Regal Resilience, which is
Yes.
all about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and creating a sustainable marketplace for um, entrepreneurs of every stripe, from solopreneurs, that is based on sacred economics. And I know Tanyette's really passionate about that. So we recently, just this past week, we're having, I love the conversation, Olga, that we were having, that we were sharing. And that's what inspired us to say, let's hop on the show and continue the conversation, because you were just sharing with me before the show that wouldn't it be awesome if people knew the possibilities of how we could connect with people around the globe and have these soulful, rich, inspired conversations, heart to heart, soul to soul, and not polarize technology too, in the sense that it's all in how we show up for it. It's all in how we use it. And so I'm just curious, Olga, what your thoughts are about that, because I feel inside of you right now, there's stuff bubbling up. There's so much.
Yes. Yes. So, like, being 15 years in finance specifically, right? gave me this opportunity to be with tech every day, like every single day. Uh, and I was rather end user than anything else. And when COVID came and things were shifting in the whole world, and I was working in different countries, so I come from Poland, but these 15 years I spent in Austria and Germany to other countries in Europe. Uh, and still I was, commuting back to Poland to be with my family. But then COVID came and I got locked down in Germany, and my monthly trips to Poland were not possible anymore. It was already me being 12 years in abroad, and without technology, I couldn't nurture those relationships because it was not allowed our other way. And without that, I come so like I was born during the time when it was communism here in Poland. So Poland was closed up. We are not having possibility to travel as much as we wanted, or we dreamed of. I still remember this. I was a small child. My father was traveling for business purposes, but he had an extra passport. That the passport you were not allowed to keep at home. So for me, it was rising all this. I don't want to use that word, but I'm going to that shit right coming up for me. And probably without technology, it would be relatively difficult to stand through that period, and because things were also shifting for me personally, I needed support of a psychotherapist. I started to heal my trauma, and I wouldn't be able to do that without online possibilities. And this became now my second nature. I meet people sometimes even on LinkedIn. They are reaching out, and I ask if they are willing and open to jump on the call. And we do that exactly as we did over the WhatsApp or Zoom last week. So it's just incredible. It's just incredible.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing all of that. This is where it's so important. It's how we do one thing is how we do everything, right? And this is where it was interesting in our conversation this week. That whole perception of we have all these now, especially the explosion. I mean, AI has been around for a while, but there's been this explosion with things more recently over the past year, especially with Chat GPT.
Yeah.
And there was an inkling that it was coming. I know even in the spiritual circles and communities, and there was trepidation about it, and because it's this fear of this loss of our soul and our spirit through it. Because, and I think it underscores what we were really talking about, because in that thing, the way we do one thing is the way we do everything, because this is where time loops into the conversation, right? We were talking about how back in the 1950s, when the first sort of labor saving devices came in, like TV dinners and washers, and I mean, washers were before then, but that sense of the sort of consumer culture and, easy button, because people just come out of a Second World War and needed life to be easier. It was very appealing, right? And all those labor saving conveniences, well, they did save us time. What did we do with that perception of that extra time? And now we have all of this, we could save time with things like AI doing things for us. And I'm blanketing it right now as I say this, right? But the question that came up when we were chatting this week was, well, what are we going to do with all that extra time? And what I started realizing as we were talking, Olga, it was just a curiosity that came up was, well, if we're going to have all this extra time, what's interfering with how we could use that time to counterbalance and keep, that humanization of our lives, and also even expansion beyond that to our soul, our spirit, is that we are living in a culture of time scarcity. I'm just going to put it on the table, spit it out, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's why under this video, I said I always like to focus on the solution. What if we lived in a culture of time abundance? And you would think on the one hand, because we're being kind of sold in our time scarcity culture, that, oh, you're going to have time abundance, but then people aren't living energetically in time abundance. They're still living in scarcity. They're still living in fight or flights, nervous system. Because you mentioned trauma earlier too. I mean,
Yes.
we've all been through things, and as we get older too, we get more different seasons of life, right? At least I'll speak for myself, that when I was younger, I didn't have that capacity to witness myself in the same way. So what are your thoughts? Like, I don't know if there's I feel free to jump in anytime because I like
Yeah,
to
so
talk a lot.
many things, came up for me after our conversation, and also today when I was resting in order for our call, to be ready for that call. And the first thing that came up is, I mean, we all know that time is there. It is just existing parallelly to our existence. That's something we have to realize. And then if we move away the need to manage our time, what does managing the time mean? Time doesn't need the management. We need to manage ourselves, and we need to manage our existence. This is what came up for me today, and I think it's worth to share it, because we focus again on things that cannot exist. The management of time is not existing.
Oh my gosh, I love that. Oh my goodness, I'm getting goosebumps right now. Just that discernment is brilliant. Oh my gosh. And how often do we hear manage your time? Especially, this is where the business part links in too, because there are all these new earth businesses
Yeah.
that are emerging, and we're all going through a huge transition and reevaluating, reassessing, the paradigms that we're living and operating within, right?
Yeah.
But that managing yourself rather than your time, because and I know in the spiritual circles I've moved in over the years, my perspective is, and maybe it's yours too, I'm not sure, is the time, I think it does because of what we shared, but I'll speak for myself, is that time is just a teaching tool. Ultimately, it's a scaffold to help us, you know, in the 3D realm, make sense of our lives. So we tend to put things into boxes and chunk things and clock time. But you were sharing with me when we talked this week that it's just the eternal now. I think you use those words exactly. There's no past, present, or future. There's just now.
There are, so like my spiritual teacher, because this is what happened also for me through technology. Also it was 2021, so I was initiated and I started to do hatha yoga, and all my spirituality started to be nurtured and blossoming at this time through online courses. And he says past is your memories, and future is what your imagination is willing to do. It is not existing separately to what's now. It's just every single moment is just now. And I think as long as we do not make this distinction, it's extremely difficult to live. Because I take 5 minutes for myself, I close my eyes, and I'm just there. And that's the most beautiful place to be. I don't need to travel, although I love to do that. It's travel itself when you close your eyes, and you really enjoy the time. And if you can do that, you you know there is this certain spaciousness that is created, and you can breathe.
Yes. Yes,
You can
that is,
breathe. And I think it's also worth to underline what you have said before. We have all of those tools to collapse the time, not so that we are faster, but we have collapsed the time we use for things that are less um, fulfilling than everything else. I
that's
think
an
we create those tools to finally live and explore that.
that's very interesting. Even what I just heard you share was how we show up for time. Like, because it's really what brings us joy, right? So um, some of the rote repetitive things that, this is where I think labor saving devices and technologies can come in. And at the same time, ideally, what it can offer us is more time to feel connected within, more time to feel connected and online with the divine, more time to, you know, n- not get off that hamster wheel, that perception that I just have to go, 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 do, do, do. Even that the expression that's so popular right now, and this links into business too, time is money. Like we've commodified time, like it's a thing, which is
So
really
let me
strange.
let you know, if I see that just technically this is another, adventure I'm making internally for some time already, and I'm still like a little bit shying away from this. But if I look at that mathematically, right, time is money. Would money equal time as well? Would you put this into equation? I doubt. So like when we start to think, because money isn't time anyhow,
Mhm.
the more money I had, the less time I had. This is what I remember from my past.
Yeah.
So, like, is that really true? Or how much money do I need to have time? And at the same time, I traveled to India and I put myself for 3 weeks in ashram and I have most time ever. Or I traveled to Africa. And just because I'm not hustling, I have all the time I need. There is no time scarcity. I can sit and enjoy being with others, being in nature, swimming in the ocean, and that's perfect life.
And
So
that's
like what
abundance. Yeah.
that's abundance. You just need to allow yourself to do that.
Yeah. And it's interesting because from everything I've been learning along the way, it's from that frequency of abundance and joy that and that allows us to feel that connection to source, where we trust ourselves to connect to ourselves. We don't run away from ourselves. We embrace, even because sometimes when we first sit with ourselves, if we haven't sat with ourselves in a very long time, you're right. The memories from the past, the fears about the future, the anxieties, all of those things can bubble up to the surface. And yet just to sit with it and hold space for it, and to not judge it, and to love it, and to accept it, and to trust yourself enough to be with it, to you used a word before we hopped on the call about being, regulated, to be able to regulate our emotions, regulate our nervous systems. I think this is going to be the bridge for a lot of us moving forward on this new earth. There's so much out there about trauma healing and recovery, and a lot of and vagus nerve and gut brain health and all this stuff. I know I have for my practice a protocol related to that. I use it myself because we're all unwinding those, experiences that were tied to all these old paradigms around time is money, time scarcity, I'm running out of time. This is what has created stress culture too. And imagine, this isn't something we just snap. I mean, maybe someone out there can, but I think for the majority of people, you can't just snap your fingers and it's behind you, even if you want it to be, because the body, holds memories and needs to unwind things. And it's interesting because you talked about swimming in the ocean and just being still. There's this kind of conundrum that I sense people, and I run into it myself too along the way, where it's like you want to sit and meditate and be still, and then all the aches and pains, or it doesn't feel good at first.
No.
And so our brains are hardwired to seek pleasure over discomfort. So then we distract, avoid, um, minimize, or rationalize. I don't have enough time. That
Yes.
kicks in, and we have so many inner riches inside of us, right? So much abundance, and the iron. The sort of, I feel like the universe has a sense of humor. The irony is, if we could just do what you just shared, sit and be quiet and comfortable, ultimately with the discomfort,
Yeah.
knowing, trusting it's part of the process,
Yeah.
where would we be? Like this is this is a frequency that actually makes everything else possible that we're seeking, not the time itself.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. One practical to do I would have is, if you clear up one day all your schedule, what remains?
Ooh, I like that. That's a wonderful exercise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What would remain for you?
It's a really good way to reflect on what are you placing value on in your life? And even how is that a mirror back to yourself of how you are valuing yourself?
Absolutely. And your time, right? And your existence.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
this is what remains, the breath, right? This is like, if you clear up everything from your one day, even if this is just Sunday where it is less to do,
Mhm.
what you see is exactly that, your life.
Yeah.
Time is there,
Yeah.
everything is there. If you want to, you can grab, and this is when you start to make conscious choices.
Yes. Yes. That's a wonderful practice. And I know you help people with that. You actually have a podcast yourself. Do you want to talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so this is a space for everybody who you know dreams that there is something more than just hustle and day work and family and everything that is beyond. And I call it midlife thriving. Midlife is the time. If you look at even research, there is less research than for any other part of our lives, which is surprising. It's pretty massive bunch of our adulthood, and it's something to look at with curiosity, maybe, and see what else can we achieve, because we are strong still, right? Our health, even if isn't as great or as strong as it used to be, we are still productive, and it's great time to look at important things and do something that will still be bringing fruits. I've also read that it's a time bridging two different generations. So the part of the life that is older than us and younger than us, it's like arrowed both sides, which is also very interesting. And I meet people who want to share what they are doing with their midlife. What does midlife actually mean to them? And I had the one conversation that hasn't been recorded, but I'm going to share that. A person I spoke to, they told me it's, when I say midlife, they said it's calm. And I was
Mm.
like, oh, it doesn't have to be crisis. That's the first connotation many of us get, or
Right.
being in the midlife is exactly the part of the life that we don't want to be, right? We are getting 3 in the beginning, or 4 in the beginning, or 5 in the beginning, and the anxiety is rising. But it's beautiful time. For me, it's the best time in my life. It's the best part of the life, or the time in my life where I feel youngest. I was younger physically before, in my 20s, but I felt like I was in mid of 30s because of all the things that I was collecting over the years without knowing. I was conscious of these things that happen, but I didn't know how much they weigh.
Mm.
What
Yeah.
impact it had on me being in my adulthood without having space and time, because I didn't know I can put space and time to that, to think how it is impacting me showing up in the life. But now I do know, and the life seems to be a way easier than it was before.
Ooh, I love that. And it's wisdom too. You've claimed your wisdom, right?
Yeah.
And and the way I'm hearing you claimed your wisdom is by the consciousness, right? The consciousness of considering the weight that, it's true for a lot of us when we're younger, we're conscious of what's going on. We're just not aware. I love that distinction. We're not aware of the weight of it, right? That's beautiful discernment, because as we move into midlife, I think the crisis is in avoiding mining the gold within us, right? Is avoiding, is just kind of dismissing it as a crisis.
Yeah.
And I think there's a Chinese character that means crisis and opportunity at the same time, right?
It is,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it
If you've
is.
heard that too, yeah. That
And
it's
this is how I came up with that, because I started to write a book back then when I was, getting through my transformation, and it was midlife crisis equals midlife thriving. This is how I get up to the short name of the podcast and whatever I want to do, because we really need to shift from that. And midlife for all of us is going to look different, because so many of us are taking on different paths, and even if we are not taking, they are happening also differently, because my family setup was different than yours. It's not just because of the countries we come from or different political systems we are born to, uh, but also who were our parents, and who were their parents, and so on and so forth, right? So like how your education, my education looked like, what countries have you visited or you haven't, and all of that has impact on who we are and how we are in the world.
which is, it's so fascinating because those soul journeys, those life paths, those, years of just learning and growing and expanding, when we share that from a place of standing in that true embrace of the the gold and all of that, the
Yes,
learning, the teachings that we can share, um, that feeds and nourishes the energetic field, like the and this is how these different seasons of living and cycles of living, if we honor them, if we embrace them, if we there, I feel like there are a lot of paradigms out there that are based on resistance,
mm-hmm.
resistance to what is, and that's what's really unraveling right now on the planet. And that's where, I mean, maybe for some people it won't unravel, or at least it won't unravel right now, but there are many people that are unwinding a lot of that.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And so this is what's shifting the field. This is what's shifting us into new ways of living and being and doing business. And and so if there's anyone listening right now, and I'm not sure if there is, sometimes there are people watching live and sometimes not, um, or if you're watching afterwards in the replay over at Oneness Talk Radio or Multidimensional Muse, please drop a comment below. If you can relate to any of this, if you've been experiencing anything in particular in relationship to time, whether it's time abundance, time scarcity, or anything like that. We'd love to hear your comments, and we'll definitely comment back.
Yeah,
It's such a fascinating topic, and wow, there's so much we could say about this topic.
absolutely.
And I know I felt like with our discussion we could go on and on, and I love our conversations. I'm looking to having so many more and having you back here again on our show. I say our show because I feel like anyone who's on here, we're all co-creating together. Like
Always.
it's
Yeah,
not just my show. it's
yeah,
it's like we're all feeling guided, and like little dots of light. We're like connecting and pinging and expanding together. So, is there anything else that, like, is there anything you really feel right now that you want to share about, maybe even ways people are going about doing business? Because you shared, you had, and when we were talking, even in the summer, you talked about all the hours you were working and how exhausting it was. And today you mentioned how, making a good income, but actually having less time.
absolutely. Yeah.
Is
This
there
was
any?
so
Yeah.
difficult, because we are not taught and we are not told that the life can look differently.
It's so true. It's so true.
It's so what I am seeing, and not only through my own life but many others, is the big events must happen in order for us to wake up from uh, how we live until, or how we lived until this certain accident that is happening in the life. And I think it's time to shift that. It's time to, and I'm still using the word because I want to raise an urgency that the more we stick and we do not go beyond what we already know, um, the more those difficult situations must happen for us in order to wake up.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't have to be hard. It doesn't have to be difficult. If we just start, excuse me, to put a little bit of attention to that.
Oh, wonderful. That's a wonderful point to like wrap up on, because yeah, we just need to pay attention, you
Yeah.
know? And that's at the heart of everything we've been talking about today. That and the heart of everything that you, in terms of offering your own sacred soul gifts to the world, to empower people to embrace midlife, to thrive in midlife, to see it as a time of great opportunity and growth and expansion, to really claim your wisdom and to love all of it, the hard stuff, the messy stuff,
Absolutely.
the beautiful stuff. It's all
Yes.
gotten everyone to the point that they're at now. And so it's, and this is the, as I see it too, the creative journey, right? So Olga, thank you so much for having all these wonderful discernments today and sharing them with us. And it's been wonderful. If anyone would like to get in touch with you, what's the best way to learn more about what you do, or follow
Yeah.
you,
So I
or?
think at the moment I am still in the preparation of landing page. It will be finalized soon. So the best way to contact me is via LinkedIn or regular resilience. Right. It's a beautiful place to meet each other. I think it's also a great opportunity to give a word around that, and I believe that through that world is going to be even smaller.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
We're better together for sure.
Yes.
uh,
Yes. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for so much for being always open to have these conversations, deeper conversations, and willingness, to create meaningful connections. It's of a huge gift to the world, to myself as well, and I truly appreciate that.
oh my goodness. And I just noticed there is a comment here. We have had
Mm-hmm.
someone watching live who's commented, and I'm just going to shout it out now because I didn't see it before. And thank you. I love your name, Alien Girl. I don't believe there are 24 hours in a day anymore. Well, you are in good company here. Amen to that. Thank
Yes.
you.
Yes. Thank you. Exactly.
Well, I'd love to have you back here again, Olga. And thank you, everyone who's been watching live. And if you're watching on the replay, thank you for adding your energy into the conversation and supporting
Thank you.
this conversation and sharing and liking it with others it will support and inspire too. And until we meet again, wishing everyone a wonderful week ahead. Be well, beautiful, creative souls.
Yes. All the